Ladies and gentlemen, today we gather to explore the fascinating history of Balochistan, a land of resilience, rich culture, and strategic importance. Balochistan's history begins with the remarkable Murghar civilization, which dates back to around 7000 BCE, making it one of the oldest known human settlements in South Asia. Murghar, located near the Bolan Pass, was a Neolithic, New Stone Age settlement that played a vital role in the transition from hunting and gathering to settled agriculture. This site is often considered a precursor to the Indus Valley civilization, which flourished thousands of years later. Archaeological excavations at Murghar, which began in the 1970s, have uncovered an astonishing range of artifacts that provide insights into the lives of its early inhabitants. The people of Murghar were among the first in the world to practice early farming and animal domestication. They cultivated crops such as wheat and barley and domesticated animals like cattle, sheep, and goats. This agricultural revolution allowed them to establish a sedentary lifestyle, building mud brick houses and forming organized settlements. Murghar is also significant for its advanced craftsmanship and trade networks. Archaeologists have discovered beautifully crafted pottery, ornaments made from seashells, and tools fashioned from copper and stone. These findings suggest that the people of Murghar engaged in long-distance trade with regions as far as Central Asia and the Persian Gulf. The discovery of lapis lazuli, turquoise, and other exotic materials further supports the theory that Murghar was a thriving economic and cultural hub. One of the most remarkable aspects of Murghar is its early medical knowledge. Researchers have found evidence of primitive dentistry, where individuals had their teeth drilled and treated using stone tools. This discovery, dating back nearly 9,000 years, is one of the earliest known examples of dental care in human history. It reflects the ingenuity and resourcefulness of the people of Murghar, who developed techniques to address health and hygiene needs long before the rise of formal medicine. Religious and spiritual practices also seem to be an essential part of Murghar society. The discovery of terracotta figurines, believed to represent deities or fertility symbols, suggests that the people had early forms of religious expression. These artifacts indicate a belief system centered around nature and fertility, which later influenced the religious traditions of the broader South Asian region. As time passed, the settlement of Murghar evolved. By around 2500 BCE, it gradually declined as its inhabitants moved towards the more advanced Indus Valley civilization, particularly the cities of Mohenjo-daro and Harappa. However, the foundations of civilization laid at Murghar, including agriculture, craftsmanship, and early medical practices, continued to shape the cultures that followed. Murghar is not just an archaeological site, it is a testament to the ingenuity and resilience of early human societies. It challenges conventional narratives that place Mesopotamia or Egypt as the sole cradles of civilization, proving that South Asia had its own parallel development of advanced societies. Despite its historical importance, Murghar remains relatively unknown to the broader world, making it a hidden treasure in the history of human civilization. The formation of Baloch tribal confederations was a defining moment in the history of Balochistan, shaping its political, social, and cultural landscape. These confederations were not just alliances of tribes, but also the foundation of Baloch governance, military organization, and resistance against foreign rule. The unique tribal structure allowed the Baloch people to preserve their autonomy, defend their lands, and maintain a distinct identity despite centuries of invasions and external influences. The origins of the Baloch tribes. The origins of the Baloch people remain a topic of debate among historians. Some theories suggest that they migrated from the Caspian region, Central Asia, or the Iranian plateau, gradually settling in the mountainous and desert regions of present-day Balochistan, Iran, and Afghanistan. By the early medieval period, 7th to 10th centuries CE, the Baloch had developed into semi-nomadic warrior tribes that relied on pastoralism, agriculture, and trade. Unlike centralized states, the Baloch political system revolved around kinship and tribal alliances. Each tribe, known as a tumen, was led by a chieftain called a sardar, who commanded loyalty from his people and represented them in intertribal matters. Over time, multiple tumens formed loose confederations, which allowed the Baloch to defend themselves against foreign invaders while maintaining their independence. The role of tribal confederations in Baloch unity. The tribal confederations were not static, but evolved based on changing political and military needs. Some of the major historical Baloch confederations include 1. The Rind and Lashari confederations, 15th to 16th century. One of the earliest known Baloch tribal conflicts and alliances was the legendary Rind-Lashari War, which took place in the 15th century. The Rind and Lashari were two powerful Baloch clans that initially formed a strong alliance under Mir Chakar Khan Rind, a charismatic and influential leader. However, a prolonged internal war between them weakened the unity of the Baloch tribes. Despite the conflicts, the Rind and Lashari clans played a crucial role in organizing Baloch military strategies and political alliances, laying the foundation for later tribal confederations. The stories of their bravery, warfare, and code of honor are still celebrated in Balochi folklore and poetry. 2. The Khanate of Kalat, a Baloch confederation, 1666 to 1955. The most significant political entity formed by the Baloch tribes was the Khanate of Kalat, established in the 17th century. The Khanate emerged as a centralized Baloch confederation under the leadership of Mir Ahmad Khan I, who brought together several powerful Baloch tribes under a single political structure. The Khanate of Kalat functioned as a semi-independent state, ruled by a Khan chief, who coordinated with tribal leaders while respecting their autonomy. This system allowed the Baloch to maintain self-governance while presenting a united front against external threats, such as the Mughals, Afghans, and, later, the British. The Khanate also developed its own military, administrative system, and diplomatic relations with regional powers. 3. Resistance against foreign rule. The Baloch tribal confederations played a vital role in resisting foreign domination, from the Mughal Empire to British colonial rule. Throughout history, the Baloch fiercely defended their lands, traditions, and independence, relying on guerrilla warfare and tribal unity. Against the Mughals. In the 17th century, the Mughal Emperor Akbar attempted to extend his control over Balochistan, but the Baloch tribes resisted fiercely. The rough mountainous terrain and the decentralized nature of Baloch warfare made it difficult for the Mughals to establish full control. Against the British. During the 19th century, the British Empire sought to incorporate Balochistan into its colonial administration, primarily due to its strategic location between British India and Persia. The Baloch confederations waged several rebellions against British forces, utilizing hit-and-run tactics and tribal alliances to counter the superior firepower of the British military. The Baloch Code of Honor and Social Structure. The tribal confederations were bound together by a strict code of honor, loyalty, and justice, which still plays a crucial role in Baloch society today. Some key elements of this code include hospitality. The Baloch are known for their strong traditions of hospitality, welcoming guests and travelers with great respect. Bravery in battle. Throughout history, the Baloch have upheld a warrior ethos, valuing courage and resilience in the face of adversity. Justice and revenge. Baloch Mire tribal justice is based on a system of revenge and compensation, ensuring that wrongs are avenged according to traditional laws. Autonomy and freedom. The Baloch have always valued their independence, resisting external control and preserving their unique way of life. Even in modern times, the tribal confederations continue to influence Baloch identity and politics, with many tribal leaders playing a significant role in regional governance and nationalist movements. Balochistan's encounter with British colonial rule in the 19th century was a transformative and often turbulent period in its history. As the British Empire expanded its influence across the Indian subcontinent, it recognized Balochistan's strategic importance as a buffer zone between British India, Afghanistan, and the Persian Empire. The British sought to establish control over the region to counter Russian expansion in Central Asia, a conflict known as the Great Game, ensure safe trade routes, and prevent any threats to their rule in India. However, British control over Balochistan was met with stiff resistance from the Baloch tribes, who had long maintained their independence against foreign powers. The early British interest in Balochistan, 1839 to 1876. The British first turned their attention to Balochistan during the First Anglo-Afghan War, 1839 to 1842. Seeking to install a pro-British ruler in Kabul, the British needed a safe passage through Balochistan to supply their military forces in Afghanistan. They sought alliances with local Baloch rulers, particularly the Khan of Kalat, who controlled a significant portion of the region. In 1839, British forces, led by General William Keane, invaded Kalat and defeated its ruler, Mir Merab Khan, who was killed in battle after resisting British demands. Following this, the British installed a puppet ruler, Shah Nawaz Khan, as the new Khan of Kalat. However, he lacked legitimacy among the Baloch tribes, leading to continued resistance. The British withdrawal from Afghanistan after their defeat in the First Anglo-Afghan War, 1842, temporarily reduced their influence in Balochistan. However, as tensions with Russia increased in the late 19th century, the British renewed their focus on securing Balochistan as a vital military and political asset. The Treaty of 1876 and the establishment of British control. By the 1870s, the British sought a more formal arrangement to solidify their authority in Balochistan. Sir Robert Sandman, a British political agent, played a crucial role in negotiating British dominance over the region. In 1876, Sandman signed a treaty with the Khan of Kalat, Mir Qadad Khan, officially making Kalat a British protectorate. This treaty allowed the Khan to retain his internal sovereignty, but he had to accept British political agents and military garrisons in key locations. The British also established direct control over parts of Balochistan, including Quetta, Bolan Pass, and Makran, which were deemed essential for military and trade purposes. This marked the formal beginning of British rule in Balochistan, but it was far from absolute. Many Baloch tribes, particularly those in western and northern Balochistan, refused to accept foreign rule and continued to resist through armed rebellions. Baloch resistance against British rule. Balochistan's resistance to British rule was marked by numerous uprisings and conflicts, as tribal warriors refused to submit to colonial control. The British relied on military force, political manipulation, and economic incentives to maintain their grip on the region, but they never fully pacified the Baloch resistance movements. 1. The Revolt of 1898, a defiant stand. One of the most significant uprisings against British rule occurred in 1898, when Chief Mullah Fazl led a large-scale rebellion against British forces in Makran. This uprising was fueled by British attempts to interfere in tribal affairs, impose taxes, and restrict Baloch autonomy. The British responded with harsh military campaigns, deploying modern weaponry against Baloch guerrilla fighters. Despite their technological advantage, the British struggled to defeat the highly mobile Baloch warriors, who used their knowledge of the mountainous terrain to wage a prolonged insurgency. This pattern of resistance continued well into the early 20th century, with periodic revolts erupting in different parts of Balochistan. 2. The role of tribal leaders and nationalist movements. Throughout British rule, Baloch tribal leaders remained central figures in the struggle for independence. Many Sardars, chieftains, refused to recognize British rule and instead demanded self-governance. By the 1930s and 1940s, with the rise of nationalist movements across India and the Middle East, Baloch political consciousness also began to grow. Intellectuals, poets, and tribal leaders started advocating for Baloch self-determination, setting the stage for the post-colonial struggle. The strategic importance of Balochistan to the British Empire. The British considered Balochistan a vital military and economic asset for several reasons. A gateway to Afghanistan, Balochistan provided a strategic route for British military campaigns into Afghanistan, particularly through the Bolan Pass. A defense line against Russia. The British feared Russian expansion into India and used Balochistan as a buffer zone to protect their empire. Trade and infrastructure development. The British built railways, roads, and telegraph lines across Balochistan to facilitate troop movements and economic exploitation. Quetta as a military hub. The city of Quetta was transformed into a key military garrison and administrative center, further solidifying British control. Despite these developments, the Baloch people remained largely excluded from political and economic benefits, leading to continued resentment against British rule. The road to independence, Balochistan in the 20th century. As British rule in India began to decline in the 1940s, Balochistan found itself at a critical crossroads. Many Baloch leaders wanted full independence rather than being incorporated into the newly created state of Pakistan. The Khan of Kalat, Mir Madhyar Khan, initially sought to declare Balochistan an independent state, citing its history of autonomy. However, the British decision to partition India in 1947 changed the political landscape. Balochistan was annexed by Pakistan in 1948, despite opposition from some tribal leaders and nationalist groups. This event marked the end of British colonial rule but also sparked new political struggles, as Baloch nationalist movements continued to fight for greater autonomy in the post-colonial era. The integration of Balochistan into Pakistan in 1948 remains one of the most debated events in the region's history. Unlike many other princely states that joined Pakistan willingly or under negotiated terms, Balochistan's accession was marked by political tensions, resistance, and lasting grievances. The events surrounding this integration set the stage for decades of Baloch nationalism, insurgencies, and demands for autonomy, making Balochistan a politically sensitive region even today. Balochistan at the time of partition, 1947. Before the creation of Pakistan on August 14, 1947, Balochistan consisted of several distinct political entities. The Khanate of Kalat, a semi-independent princely state, ruled by the Khan of Kalat, with its own governance system and treaties with the British. British Balochistan, areas directly administered by the British, including Quetta, Zab, and Lorelei. The tribal areas, regions governed by local tribal chiefs under British indirect rule. As British rule in India ended, the fate of Balochistan became a matter of intense debate. The Khan of Kalat, Mir Madhyar Khan, wanted to maintain Balochistan's independence, arguing that Kalat had signed separate treaties with the British and was not part of British India. Many Baloch nationalists supported this stance, believing that Balochistan had a distinct identity and should remain a sovereign state. The Declaration of Balochistan's Independence, August 1947. On August 11, 1947, just 3 days before Pakistan's independence, the Khan of Kalat formally declared Balochistan an independent state. This declaration was based on historical claims that Balochistan had never been fully integrated into British India, and therefore, it had the right to exist as a separate nation. The Kalat National Assembly, the region's legislative body, voted in favor of remaining independent, and the Khan began diplomatic efforts to gain international recognition. However, this move was met with opposition from the new government of Pakistan, led by Muhammad Ali Jinnah, who insisted that Balochistan should join Pakistan. Pakistan's efforts to integrate Balochistan. Pakistan viewed Balochistan as an essential part of its territorial integrity, citing strategic and geopolitical reasons. Geographical importance. Balochistan provided access to the Arabian Sea and was a key buffer against potential threats from Afghanistan and Iran. Natural resources. The region was rich in minerals, gas, and other natural resources, which were crucial for Pakistan's economic development. Security concerns. Pakistan feared that an independent Balochistan could become influenced by India, Afghanistan, or Western powers, creating security risks. Initially, Jinnah attempted to negotiate with the Khan of Kalat, urging him to merge with Pakistan voluntarily. However, when negotiations failed, Pakistan took a more forceful approach. The annexation of Balochistan, March 1948. On March 27, 1948, the government of Pakistan announced the formal accession of Balochistan, claiming that the Khan of Kalat had agreed to join. However, many Baloch nationalists and historical accounts argue that the decision was made under pressure and coercion. The Khan later stated that he had been forced to sign the agreement, and his appeal for international intervention was ignored. Baloch nationalists considered the annexation a violation of their right to self-determination. Protests and armed resistance began almost immediately, with several tribal leaders rejecting Pakistani rule. The Pakistani military moved into Kalat to enforce the accession, leading to clashes with Baloch forces. This forced merger created deep resentment among the Baloch people, who felt that their independence had been unjustly taken away. The Baloch nationalist movement was born from this event, and it would continue to shape the region's political landscape for decades. The First Baloch Rebellion, 1948 to 1950. Soon after annexation, Prince Abdul Karim Khan, the younger brother of the Khan of Kalat, led an armed rebellion against Pakistan. He and his followers took refuge in Afghanistan, seeking support to fight for Balochistan's independence. However, the rebellion was quickly crushed by the Pakistani military, and Prince Abdul Karim was arrested and imprisoned. Although the uprising was suppressed, it set a precedent for future Baloch resistance movements. The feeling of betrayal and forced occupation continued to fuel nationalist sentiments, leading to several more uprisings in the coming decades. The aftermath: continued discontent and political struggles. Following the annexation, Balochistan remained a politically sensitive and restive region. While Pakistan attempted to integrate it into the national framework, several key issues remained unresolved. Lack of political representation. Many Baloch leaders were sidelined in national politics, leading to feelings of exclusion. Underdevelopment. Despite its rich natural resources, Balochistan remained one of the poorest regions in Pakistan, with limited access to infrastructure, education, and healthcare. Cultural and linguistic identity. The Baloch people feared that their language, traditions, and way of life were being threatened by forced assimilation. Military presence. Pakistan maintained a heavy military presence in Balochistan, leading to periodic conflicts and accusations of human rights violations. These grievances have persisted for decades, fueling multiple Baloch nationalist movements that continue to demand greater autonomy or full independence. The events of 1948 remain a defining moment in Balochistan's history, shaping its relationship with the state of Pakistan and influencing its modern-day struggles. After Balochistan's forced integration into Pakistan in 1948, the region became a center of political unrest, armed resistance, and demands for greater autonomy. The Baloch people, who had long maintained their tribal governance and independent identity, found themselves under the control of a central government that they felt did not represent their interests. Over the years, tensions between the Baloch nationalist movements and the Pakistani state have led to multiple uprisings, military interventions, and ongoing struggles for self-determination and regional rights. The rise of Baloch nationalism. Baloch nationalism has deep historical roots, but it became politically organized in the years following Pakistan's independence. Many Baloch intellectuals, tribal leaders, and activists believed that Balochistan had been annexed against its will and that the federal government in Islamabad had failed to address the region's political, economic, and cultural concerns. Discontent with the central government, the Baloch people felt that they were being treated as second-class citizens in Pakistan, with little say in national affairs. Resource exploitation. Despite being rich in natural resources such as gas, coal, and minerals, Balochistan remained one of the poorest and least developed provinces in Pakistan. Many Baloch nationalists accused the federal government of extracting wealth from the region without benefiting its people. Military suppression. Whenever Baloch leaders demanded greater autonomy, the Pakistani government responded with military crackdowns, fueling further resentment. These grievances led to the formation of nationalist political parties and, in some cases, armed insurgencies aimed at securing more autonomy or complete independence for Balochistan. The major Baloch uprisings against Pakistan. Since 1948, Balochistan has witnessed multiple armed uprisings against the Pakistani state. These revolts were led by tribal chieftains, guerrilla fighters, and nationalist movements, each demanding a greater degree of self-rule. First Baloch Insurgency, 1948 to 1950. The first major Baloch rebellion began immediately after the annexation of Balochistan. Prince Abdul Karim Khan, the brother of the Khan of Kalat, led an armed insurgency against Pakistan. He gathered fighters from Baloch tribes and launched guerrilla attacks on Pakistani military forces. The rebellion was short-lived, as Pakistani troops quickly suppressed the movement. Abdul Karim was arrested and imprisoned, but the seeds of Baloch resistance had been sown. Second Baloch Insurgency, 1958 to 1959. The second uprising occurred when Pakistan's military government, led by General Ayub Khan, attempted to tighten its control over Balochistan. Nawab Noraz Khan, a respected tribal leader, led an armed rebellion against the central government. After several skirmishes, the Pakistani military arrested Nawaz Khan and his followers, sentencing them to death. The execution of Baloch tribal leaders further strengthened nationalist sentiment in the region. Third Baloch Insurgency, 1963 to 1969. During the 1960s, tensions between Balochistan and the federal government escalated again. The Pakistan Army launched operations against Baloch militants, particularly in the region of Mari and Bugti tribal areas. The Baloch People's Liberation Front, BPLF, was formed to fight against Pakistani control. The insurgency lasted for several years, resulting in thousands of deaths and displacements. The government eventually negotiated a temporary peace agreement, but it failed to address the root causes of Baloch grievances. Fourth Baloch Insurgency, 1973 to 1977. One of the largest and bloodiest Baloch uprisings took place during the 1970s. It began when Prime Minister Zulfikar Ali Bhutto dismissed the Balochistan provincial government, leading to widespread protests and armed resistance. The Baloch Liberation Movement, BLM, was formed, demanding complete independence from Pakistan. The Pakistani government deployed over 80,000 troops to crush the rebellion. Iraqi and Soviet support was rumored for the Baloch fighters, while Pakistan received help from Iran, which feared a similar uprising among its Baloch population. After years of heavy fighting, the uprising was defeated, but Baloch nationalism continued to grow stronger. Fifth Baloch Insurgency, 2004-present. The most recent and longest-running Baloch insurgency began in the early 2000s, triggered by political and economic marginalization. The killing of Nawab Akbar Bugti in 2006, a prominent Baloch nationalist leader, further escalated the conflict. The Balochistan Liberation Army, BLA, and other groups launched attacks on Pakistani security forces, infrastructure, and gas pipelines. The Pakistani military responded with full-scale operations, leading to allegations of human rights abuses, forced disappearances, and extrajudicial killings. The conflict remains unresolved, with ongoing violence, separatist demands, and accusations of state repression. Political struggles for autonomy. Beyond armed resistance, Baloch political parties have long fought for constitutional and legal rights within Pakistan's political system. In the 1970s, Baloch leaders demanded greater provincial autonomy through legal means. However, their efforts were often blocked by the federal government. The 18th Amendment to the Constitution of Pakistan, 2010, was a step toward decentralization, granting more powers to provinces, but many Baloch nationalists felt it did not go far enough. Several Baloch parties, such as the Balochistan National Party, BNP, and the National Party, NP, continue to advocate for greater control over local resources, governance, and cultural rights. Human rights issues and state repression. The conflict in Balochistan has led to numerous human rights violations, with both sides, Pakistani security forces and Baloch insurgents, accused of committing atrocities. Forced disappearances. Thousands of Baloch activists, journalists, and political leaders have gone missing over the years, allegedly abducted by Pakistani security agencies. Extrajudicial killings. Many Baloch activists have been found dead, their bodies showing signs of torture and execution. Military operations. Entire villages have been displaced, with thousands of civilians caught in the crossfire. Targeted attacks. Baloch separatists have attacked government infrastructure, Chinese projects, and non-Baloch settlers, further intensifying tensions. Despite these challenges, the Baloch nationalist movement remains active, with ongoing demands for justice, self-governance, and economic equality. The struggle for Balochistan's autonomy continues to be a major political and security issue in Pakistan, affecting its domestic stability and international relations. Balochistan is the largest province of Pakistan, covering nearly 44% of the country's total land area. It is a region blessed with vast natural resources, from rich mineral deposits and natural gas reserves to an extensive coastline along the Arabian Sea. Despite these abundant resources, Balochistan remains Pakistan's most underdeveloped and impoverished province. The paradox of extreme wealth beneath its soil and extreme poverty above it has fueled deep resentment among the Baloch people, who argue that their resources have been systematically exploited without benefiting the local population. The issue of economic exploitation has been a core grievance of Baloch nationalists and political activists for decades. They argue that Balochistan's resources have been extracted by the federal government and its allies without reinvesting in the welfare, infrastructure, and development of the province. The economic marginalization of Balochistan has led to widespread discontent, insurgencies, and ongoing struggles for autonomy. The natural wealth of Balochistan. Balochistan is home to some of Pakistan's most valuable natural resources, including natural gas reserves, discovered in the 1950s. Sway gas fields in Dera Bugdi supply a significant portion of Pakistan's gas needs. Minerals and metals. Balochistan holds rich deposits of gold, copper, coal, chromite, and iron ore. The Reko Diq mine is one of the world's largest gold and copper deposits. Coastal wealth. The Gwadar Port, located along the Arabian Sea, is a strategic trade hub, potentially making Balochistan a key player in international commerce. However, despite its economic potential, Balochistan remains one of the least developed and poorest regions in South Asia. The Sway gas controversy, a symbol of exploitation. One of the biggest examples of economic exploitation is the case of Sway gas, which was discovered in 1952 in the Dera Bugdi region of Balochistan. The Sway gas fields have supplied natural gas to major cities like Karachi, Lahore, and Islamabad for decades. However, for many years, the people of Balochistan themselves did not have access to this gas. Gas pipelines were built to transport energy to Punjab and Sindh, while Baloch villages near the gas fields remained without gas supply. The royalty paid to Balochistan for Sway gas was minimal compared to the billions of rupees earned by the federal government. Local Baloch leaders demanded higher royalties and greater local control over the gas fields, but their requests were largely ignored. This economic injustice fueled anger among the Baloch tribes, leading to violent conflicts between Baloch insurgents and Pakistani security forces. The Sway gas issue became a major catalyst for the Baloch nationalist movement, reinforcing the belief that Balochistan's wealth was being stolen while its people remained in poverty. The Reko Diq gold and copper mines, a lost opportunity for Balochistan. Another example of resource exploitation is the Reko Diq copper and gold project, located in Shagai district. This region contains one of the largest undeveloped gold and copper reserves in the world, yet Balochistan has not reaped the benefits of this natural wealth. Foreign companies, including Tethian Copper Company, TCC, were given contracts to extract minerals without giving local Baloch communities a fair share. When the Balochistan government tried to assert control, it became entangled in legal battles and international arbitration cases, leading to massive financial penalties for Pakistan. Despite its huge economic potential, Reko Diq remains underdeveloped, with the local Baloch population still living in poverty. This case further deepened Baloch resentment, as the people of the region saw their natural resources being controlled by outsiders while they remained marginalized. Gwadar Port, a mega project without local benefits. The Gwadar Port, part of the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, CPEC, is one of Pakistan's most strategic infrastructure projects. It has the potential to turn Pakistan into a major trade and shipping hub. However, local Baloch fishermen and communities have raised serious concerns about the project, claiming that they are being displaced without receiving any economic benefits. Chinese and Pakistani investors have gained control over the port, while local Baloch laborers struggle to find jobs. The fishing community, which has lived in Gwadar for generations, faces restrictions as commercial activities expand. The rapid militarization of the region, with a heavy presence of security forces, has alienated the local population. Despite billions of dollars of investment, Gwadar remains one of the least developed cities in Pakistan, lacking basic infrastructure, clean water, and health facilities. Baloch nationalists argue that Gwadar is being developed for foreign investors, while the local Baloch people are ignored and marginalized. Lack of investment in education, healthcare, and infrastructure. Despite its economic contributions, Balochistan remains Pakistan's most neglected province in terms of education, healthcare, and infrastructure. Literacy rates in Balochistan are the lowest in Pakistan, with many areas lacking basic schools and universities. The healthcare system is severely underfunded, leading to high infant mortality rates and a lack of medical facilities. Roads, electricity, and clean drinking water remain unavailable in many rural areas, despite the wealth generated from the region's resources. This disparity between wealth extraction and local poverty has intensified feelings of alienation among the Baloch people, fueling demands for greater autonomy and control over their own resources. The federal government's response. The Pakistani government has made several promises to improve Balochistan's economic situation, including announcing development packages aimed at improving infrastructure and education, increasing resource royalties for the Balochistan government, including Balochistan in major projects like CPEC. However, many Baloch leaders and activists argue that these measures are not enough and that the core issues of economic exploitation and political exclusion remain unaddressed. The ongoing struggle for economic justice. The issue of economic exploitation in Balochistan is not just a historical grievance, it is an ongoing reality. Baloch activists, scholars, and leaders continue to demand greater control over their province's resources. Many argue that unless the people of Balochistan are given a fair share of their own wealth, the cycle of resentment, insurgency, and political instability will continue. Balochistan, the largest province of Pakistan, holds immense geopolitical importance due to its strategic location, abundant natural resources, and deep-water ports. Positioned at the crossroads of South Asia, the Middle East, and Central Asia, Balochistan has historically attracted the interest of regional and global powers. From the British colonial era to modern-day China-Pakistan Economic Corridor (CPEC) developments, the province has been a battleground for influence and control. While its strategic location should have been an asset for its people, it has instead led to conflicts, foreign interventions, and economic exploitation. Various actors, including Pakistan, China, India, Iran, Afghanistan, and Western powers, have sought to establish their influence in the region. This complex geopolitical struggle has only intensified the political instability, insurgency, and human rights concerns in Balochistan. Balochistan's geopolitical location, a gateway to global trade. Balochistan borders Iran and Afghanistan, giving it a critical position in regional security and trade dynamics. It also has a vast coastline along the Arabian Sea, home to Pakistan's deep-sea port, Gwadar, which serves as a key hub for international trade routes. Proximity to the Persian Gulf. Balochistan's location near the Strait of Hormuz, one of the world's most important oil shipping routes, makes it strategically valuable for global powers. A link between Central Asia and the Arabian Sea, the province provides the shortest land route for trade between Central Asia and the Arabian Sea, making it a crucial transit zone for energy exports and imports. A key player in China's Belt and Road Initiative, BRI, the Gwadar Port is a central component of China's multi-trillion-dollar Belt and Road Initiative, allowing China direct access to the Arabian Sea and Middle Eastern markets. These factors make Balochistan a high-stakes region in global politics, with multiple powers vying for control and influence. Gwadar Port, a strategic asset in international trade and military power. Gwadar, a deep-sea port developed with heavy Chinese investment, has the potential to rival major regional ports like Dubai, Chabahar, Iran, and Mumbai, India. However, its development has sparked geopolitical tensions, as various countries view the port as a symbol of shifting power dynamics in South Asia. China's role in Gwadar. China has heavily invested in Gwadar Port as part of its China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, CPEC, a key project under the Belt and Road Initiative, BRI. The port provides China with a direct trade route to the Middle East, Africa, and beyond, reducing its reliance on the Malacca Strait for energy imports. India's concerns. India sees Gwadar Port as a threat, as it strengthens China's influence in the Indian Ocean region. In response, India has invested in Iran's Chabahar port, located just 170 kilometers from Gwadar, to counterbalance Chinese expansion. U.S. and Western interests. The United States has expressed concerns that China could use Gwadar for military purposes, allowing its navy to extend its reach into the Arabian Sea and the Persian Gulf. As a result, Gwadar has become more than just a commercial port. It is now a symbol of global power struggles, with multiple countries monitoring its development closely. The Baloch insurgency and regional security concerns. The ongoing Baloch insurgency has further complicated Balochistan's geopolitical landscape. The separatist movement, led by groups like the Balochistan Liberation Army, BLA, and the Balochistan Liberation Front, BLF, has had direct and indirect impacts on regional security. Pakistan's view. The Pakistani government sees the insurgency as a serious national security threat and has deployed thousands of troops to counter separatist activities. China's worries. Chinese workers and projects in Balochistan have been targeted by Baloch insurgents, causing concerns over the safety of CPEC investments. In response, Pakistan has increased security measures, further militarizing the province. Alleged Indian involvement. Pakistan has accused India of supporting Baloch separatists, claiming that India funds and trains insurgents to destabilize the region. This has led to diplomatic tensions between India and Pakistan, with Balochistan becoming a flashpoint in their long-standing rivalry. The role of Iran and Afghanistan in Balochistan's geopolitical equation. Balochistan's shared borders with Iran and Afghanistan make it a key player in regional security matters. However, the province's instability, cross-border movements, and ethnic ties with Baloch populations in these neighboring countries have created complex geopolitical dynamics. Iran's perspective. Iran has its own Baloch population in the Sistan Balochistan province, and it has faced separatist movements, similar to those in Pakistan. Tehran fears that Baloch nationalism in Pakistan could influence Iranian Balochs and lead to unrest. Pakistan-Iran border security issues. The Pakistan-Iran border has seen incidents of cross-border attacks, smuggling, and militant activities, further straining relations between the two countries. Both nations have conducted military operations along the border to control insurgent movements. Afghanistan's involvement. Afghanistan has historically been home to Baloch refugees and insurgent groups, and Pakistan has accused Afghan intelligence agencies of supporting Baloch separatists. The fall of the Afghan government in 2021 and the return of the Taliban have added new uncertainties to Balochistan's security situation. The geopolitical battle for influence in Balochistan. With multiple global and regional powers seeking influence in Balochistan, the province has become a hotbed of international competition. China's strategic goals. China sees Balochistan, especially Gwadar, as a critical asset in its global expansion strategy. Securing Gwadar means securing a direct trade route to the Middle East and Africa, bypassing traditional sea routes controlled by the US and India. India's countermeasures. India continues to build its influence in Iran's Chabahar port as a counterweight to China's Gwadar port, ensuring it remains a key player in South Asian trade and security dynamics. The US and Western response. The United States views China's growing presence in Balochistan as a direct challenge to Western dominance in global trade and military influence. The US has encouraged closer ties with India to contain China's expansion in the region. Pakistan's internal dilemma. While Pakistan benefits economically from Chinese investments, it also struggles to balance security concerns, local Baloch opposition, and international pressure. The future of Balochistan in global politics. Balochistan's geopolitical significance is undeniable, but its future remains uncertain. The province's natural wealth, strategic location, and deep-sea ports make it a valuable geopolitical asset, yet the lack of development, political instability, and armed conflict continue to hold it back. If Balochistan's geopolitical potential is to be fully realized, there must be a balance between economic development, political stability, and local empowerment. Otherwise, it will remain a contested battleground for global powers, insurgent groups, and regional players, caught in a never-ending cycle of conflict and exploitation.